How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to go over the Frost Iris build with the changes for Season 4 Whispering Mist League. Overall, Iris probably gets the least changes out of any character or any build that I played before, based off of the new patch. You were already not really using that many auras compared to other classes, that are really heavily aura stacking, and overall, everything that Iris got was actually a buff. They only had one change on the tree, where they adjusted this here to where instead of getting 0.5 chance for your spirit to use an enhanced skill, it now is 1% for every 1% excess resistance because of the resistance changes that they made. Since we're going to be getting less, or be required to get less resistances overall, and we're going to be getting less from gear and everything, they lowered the cap that we need to overcap by to compensate. The only other thing that the build really did lose was that Curtain here no longer will have this restoration of missing life and energy shield when you lose barrier. It's not the end of the world, because for damage and things anyways, reflection is what you wanted to use either way. And with the changes with the new supports that they have offered for the things, you will be able to use all the supports, all three of the ones that give aura effect. You'll be able to use all those on all of your auras for every single one. The support that you end up sealing on life, which will just be elemental amplification or frigid, that will seal up 91% of your life, and then using all the maximum aura supports on every single one of your auras, you'll end up reserving about 94.2% of your mana. So with this, you'll have enough mana to still do whatever you want to do, or still be able to actually do everything, because they've lowered the mana costs on everything as well. And then outside of that, there's two big patch notes that were massive buffs for the build. And what those are is the damage cap is no longer 100 billion, which for this build, you are being severely limited by that. You would constantly see yourself hitting for the damage cap all the time, many times a second. So with this, what you're going to see is that the actual damage for the build will just go up already just from that. You're not actually losing any of your damage auras on this. You're losing Blizzard, basically. That's it, because you have to move your Summon Frost Spirit back to your active skills from your passives. And then because of that, you can't run Blizzard in this slot as you would before. Everything else is going to be exactly the same. And then the other buff that the build is getting is that they are making it to where Isomorphic Arms is just applying the main hand stats, like all the buffs that you have on the weapon, but it's not going to be affecting the attack speed of your minion. So the attack speed of your minion is always going to be higher, like without using a two-handed weapon, because the two-handed weapons are extremely slow. It's like 0.95 attack time compared to what the base attack speed is of the minions. So because of that, this is going to be a buff overall for Isomorphic Arms as well for this build, and especially for the Thunder Spirits, probably. I haven't played the Thunder Spirit Iris build, but from what I'm reading about it, I'm fairly positive this is a pretty big buff for them as well. The tree itself is not changing whatsoever from what I've seen. There is some new gear that potentially might end up getting some use. But we're just going to have to basically play it by ear, and we'll have to wait till the item actually comes out to kind of see if it ends up being worth it. But all in all, it's the same thing as usual. You're still just going for +1 to minions or cold or passive skills as usual. Same thing, you're still getting blur. You still want to be going for your deflection on boots. And then you're just getting this growth on Spirit Magus, things like this. I'm not going to go super into detail on this, because I will put the link to all of the different tiers of playing Iris along the way, because the difference in the guides between last season and this season aren't going to change too much. Again, and because there's very specific breakpoints and tiers of like how you want to go about playing Iris, you start out without using the memory and without using the staff, and I kind of give a pretty detailed walkthrough in my other videos as to exactly how to go about league starting on Iris, and then getting your items upgraded, and then getting yourself onto the actual triggered version that we have here. So we've gone over what it looks like to be on the end game version of Iris. This is going to be more of like the gear you'll be looking at for like your day one gear. When you first get started, the first thing you're going to want to be getting yourself is, again, a staff here with tier 1 cooldown recovery speed. You're just going to want to get a generic helmet here if you can get one with chance for minions to deal double damage. There are basically there's like a legendary helmet you can get that has this on it. You can get that, and then for your chest, you're gonna just, again, if you can get something to +1 to main skill, you want that. +1 to active skill doesn't do anything, so don't get this, but get +1 to main skill if you can. You can throw your Frost Iris on main skill in the meantime. Otherwise, just get anything defensive, and that's fine. Same thing like with your gloves. You're just going to be going for +1 to spell skills. You are going to want to get the gloves if you can that give you a percentage of your mana back whenever you use a spell. But overall, this is just generic gear. You're going to basically go for growth rings that aren't going to be T0. They're just going to be like the whatever T3 or whatever they are. Just start off with those. And then same thing with the ring. You aren't going to have a ring with the curse on hit. We're going to have this on here for now. I guess I can just take this off to kind of simulate what it's like to have one. But pretty much this is going to be the gear that you have while you're farming your T7s. Basically, the things you're going to need to be farming for on day one, you're going to need to get your memory here. A 3-second or a 4-second, whichever is fine early on. And then your Friend Nemesis Chest, again, on day one. This is going to be really expensive, but it does start to go down in price every single day. It's worth it. If you can basically farm yourself up enough money, it is worth it to basically buy one of these right away, because then you can jump yourself into T8 and you'll start making a ton more money off of that right away. Winter Origin should end up being really cheap again. It was extremely cheap this last league. Like, I'm talking like 20 FE or less for some of these, and it popped up pretty early on as well. So you are going to want to get your belt, but again, in the order of things, I will put it in the comments of the video, the exact gear upgrade order that I recommend. But we're starting off with this. For the tree, you will start off with the Steel Vanguard tree. Once you get your memory and your weapons, then there is the other build guide I have, which basically then you swap to the Warlock tree in order to basically cover your early on stages until you get your T0 CDR Staff and all that other stuff. But for the most part, when it comes to leveling, you're just leveling with like Ice Lances or Ring of Frost, along with your Frost Irises, or with your Frost Spirits rather, and you're just kind of letting your Frost Spirits bonk things. When it comes to mapping early on, this is going to be what you're going to be having in your like T7, T8s here. You'll be basically getting this, like, you'll spike up to maybe 70 to like a, 70, 80 million DPS, something like that. It's not going to be anything crazy, but this is going to be more than enough to basically do your T7s. And then once you are actually in and doing your T7s, you'll be able to basically buy your memory first, which will increase your DPS even further, and then you kind of just continue to go from there. But the character is definitely locked in at kind of being a T7 farmer until you get the pieces going with Friend Nemesis, so don't expect to go into T8 on day one with this build. This build is definitely not the fastest at doing that, but it is extremely fast at getting you into T7s comfortably, farming them quickly, and then of course you'll have this massive power spike once you get your gear going. But again, this is more than comfortable enough for T7s until then, so this is kind of what you're going to be looking at until you get yourself some gear. With that, again, I expect some of the gear for this to be even cheaper. It is nice that we are going to be able to just trigger everything. So all of these cooldown reductions, these are being removed from the game, but these will just be the These will just end up being activation mediums that we run on every single skill here. We won't actually need to run any activation medium on Frost Spirit, but yeah, I don't even think there's any of them that are going to be worth it damage-wise. I was kind of looking over them, and I don't believe that any of these will end up being worth it. The only one that potentially could maybe be worth it is this, but I don't know how this will work with minions. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to work with the minions. You might want to use it just to not have to hit the F button, right? You might be using an activation medium to avoid having to use the very expensive like wind collar action thing. Presuming this even works for this, right? We're gonna have to test it. It'll be personal preference, but yeah, I don't think that it is going to. I don't think it's going to be worth it. I think this is specifically saying it can't support passive skills is probably going to be because of or being unable to support the Frost Spirit, specifically for that reason. Because of the fact that the spirits are in a really, really weird place, we're going to have to kind of tinker around with things. So I will be making an update to this build when I actually end up playing it. I'm probably going to end up starting on Frost Gemma, but Iris, you know, I'm potentially going to want to start on this as well, just because overall she's just getting buffed. She's losing very little defensively. You lose like 1 defense because of protection field being removed, so you no longer have that on your yeah, you no longer have a free triggered defensive or protection field, and you're losing curtain if you're running like the kinetic conversion setup. But kinetic conversion itself is still good, just with the barrier. So you might end up going that route anyways instead of running this focus strike slate here. It's really going to come down to personal preference though, but I still think that Iris is going to be one of the stronger ones. Overall, I think you'd even end up with more energy shield than what you have here, because of the fact that you are going to have, while they are changing Energy Fortress to only give about 600 something energy shield, you are going to be getting like 130% aura effect on that, which will take it up above what you're getting here with the 985. So you should see an overall DPS increase, or a an overall energy shield increase rather. Your defenses are probably going to be, I mean, of course they're going to be a little bit lower because there's no protection field, but I think out of what everyone is losing so far, this build is losing the least, and it's definitely gaining a lot of damage. So it's definitely up there for contender for being extremely strong. The only downside I would say with it is, again, you are kind of capped around like 50 to like 100 million DPS pretty early on until you get your memory and your chest here, Friend Nemesis. And the Friend Nemesis Chest itself, it does come from the T8 version of the City of Eterna. So you do kind of basically need to wait for people to farm these, and they're really, really expensive on like day 1 and day 2. They're like 500 to 1,000 FE. And then they do start to drop in price, you know, as soon as more people start farming the T8 version of City. But until then, you're basically looking at 1,000 FE to like really start your build. So because of that, definitely worth considering. Just know that you might be a little bit slow off the gate, but once you get your build up and running, you're going to be able to cruise through all the content in the game. So something to consider if you're interested in it. Leave any comments down below if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. And other than that, see you in the next one.